Some places on Earth are ordinary at first glance, but sometimes something waits, something unseen. Tonight, we travel to three of the most unsettling, terrifying, and real locations ever recorded. First, the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, 200 square miles stretch of land where forests, swamps, and highways hide mysteries that have haunted witnesses for decades. Phantom hitchhikers, shadowy figures, unexplained lights, and voices that call your name when no one is there. Then, we cross oceans to New South Wales, Australia, to Monte Cristo Homestead, a house that doesn't just hold memories, it holds grudges. Lives have ended within its walls, tragedies that left the spirits unwilling to move on. Some say the house watches you, and sometimes it whispers. And finally, deep in the forests of the Czech Republic, Houska Castle, a fortress that was never meant to protect men from the outside, but to imprison something far older, far darker, beneath its stone floors. Those who dare step inside feel the weight of centuries pressing down on them, and the pit below. Watchers, these are not stories made up to scare you. They are real, documented, witnessed, and tonight, their secrets will be revealed. If you dare to listen, some places feel wrong the moment you step into them. In the Bridgewater Triangle, that feeling never leaves. This 200 square mile stretch of land in southeastern Massachusetts looks ordinary on a map. It's dotted with towns, highways, forests, and swamps. But to those who've lived here or dared to explore it after dark, the triangle has earned a far darker reputation. It's a place where legends, tragedies, and the unexplained collide. Locals whisper about it. Paranormal investigators flock to it, and those who have walked its woods or driven its back roads often come back changed, haunted by what they've seen. The triangle is anchored by three towns: Abington to the north, Rehoboth to the west, and Freetown to the southeast. Within these borders lies Hockomock Swamp, the dense wetlands that many believe are the triangle's beating, haunted heart. But the phenomena here stretch far beyond the swamp. Phantom hitchhikers, UFOs, cryptid encounters, ritualistic crimes, and ghostly apparitions all have been reported, overlapping for decades. The land's dark reputation isn't just modern folklore, its roots go back centuries. Long before colonists arrived, the native Wampanoag people called the swamp Hockomock, meaning the place where spirits dwell. For them, this was sacred ground, where the line between the living and spirit worlds blurred. But when English settlers expanded into the region in the 1600s, blood was spilled on this soil. During King Philip's War, a brutal conflict between colonists and native tribes of Comock, swamp became both battlefield and graveyard. Thousands died, their bodies lost to the water and mud. Some believe the land was stained by that violence, cursed to never know peace again. Ever since, the swamp has carried a reputation for swallowing men whole, both physically and spiritually. Early settlers refused to build homes near it, describing an oppressive presence that weighed on them, a constant sense of being watched. That reputation never went away. The swamp covers more than 16,000 acres, dense wetlands, bogs, and twisted trees. Even in daylight, it feels unnatural. Hunters vanish without a trace. Fishermen report being pulled under by unseen hands. And countless witnesses have described strange lights hovering over the swamp, flickering like fire yet leaving no smoke. In the 1970s, local police officers began reporting encounters they couldn't explain. One officer claimed he saw a massive figure, feet tall, broad-shouldered, with glowing red eyes staring at him from the tree line. He drew his weapon, but before he could react, the figure vanished into the mist. Others spoke of phantom fires, burning bright in the swamp at night, only to vanish as they approached. To this day, hikers describe sudden silences in the swamp, moments when birds stop singing, frogs stop croaking, and the entire wetland seems to hold its breath. And then, faintly, they hear it, voices, sometimes whispers, sometimes screams, always just far enough away to draw them deeper into the bog. Not all return. If the swamp is the triangle's heart, then Route 44 is its haunted highway. Drivers traveling this lonely road have encountered something unforgettable: a phantom hitchhiker. Witnesses describe the same man figure with long dark hair, wearing a red flannel shirt. He appears walking along the roadside, thumb out, sometimes stepping directly into the road. But when cars slow down or pass, he vanishes. One woman in the late 1970s reported stopping to pick him up. The man opened the door, climbed into the passenger seat, and sat in silence for miles. She described feeling the weight of him in the seat beside her, but when she glanced over, he was gone. Terrified, she kept driving. She told police she could still feel the indentation in the seat next to her all the way home. Other drivers have said the figure appears directly in the path of their car, forcing them to slam the brakes only for the road ahead to be empty. A few even claimed to hear his voice in the car, whispering from the back seat, when no one else was there. The triangle isn't haunted by spirits alone. Some of its darkest stories come from the living. The Freetown State Forest, stretching across thousands of acres, has been the site of grisly crimes and alleged occult activity. Police have uncovered evidence of ritual sacrifices, burned circles, animal remains, and symbols carved into trees. In the 1980s and 1990s, reports surfaced of cult gatherings, fires burning in the woods late at night, and hooded figures seen moving between the trees. More chilling are the murders. Bodies have been found in shallow graves, victims tied to criminal activity or left behind after violent crimes. The forest's reputation became so sinister that many locals refused to enter it after dark. Some hikers who've braved its trails tell of hearing drums echoing through the trees, or stumbling across fresh altar candles still burning, offerings of blood and bone left behind. Whether the work of cults or copycats inspired by the triangle's legends, the result is the same. The forest feels alive with menace. Not all the triangle's mysteries walk on the ground. Many take to the skies. For decades, strange lights and objects have been reported over the area. Witnesses describe glowing orbs hovering silently, darting at impossible speeds, or vanishing instantly. Pilots have filed reports of craft that outmaneuvered their planes, some accompanied by low humming vibrations that interfered with their instruments. In the 1970s, a group of teenagers lying on a hill outside Bridgewater swore they saw a triangular craft with 3 bright lights drift silently overhead. It blocked out the stars for several minutes before shooting away faster than any aircraft could. Skeptics blame swamp gas, atmospheric conditions, or aircraft misidentification, but too many people, from police officers to commercial pilots, have witnessed the same thing. And the sightings stretch back generations. Perhaps the most disturbing accounts are the personal ones, ordinary people thrust into extraordinary fear. In the late 1970s, a man named Mark was driving alone through Rehoboth one night when his headlights illuminated a figure in the road. At first, he thought it was a deer, but as he slowed, he realized it was upright, tall, human-shaped, but wrong. Its limbs were too long, its face was featureless. Before he could react, it darted into the woods with inhuman speed. Mark pulled over, shaken, but curiosity made him step out. The woods were unnaturally silent. No insects, no wind, just stillness. Then he heard it, branches cracking, leaves shifting, something large circling him in the dark. Panic surged. He scrambled back into his car, locking the doors. As he turned on the headlights, he saw the figure again, closer now, standing just beyond the trees, watching. He drove off, swearing never to return. Mark's story isn't unique. Hunters tell of hearing voices call their names in the swamp. Drivers report shadowy figures pacing their cars. Hikers feel hands brush against their shoulders when no one is there. The common thread is dread, an overwhelming sense of being watched, pressed in on all sides, as if the triangle itself is aware of you. The Bridgewater Triangle remains one of America's most notorious paranormal hotspots. Its stories are too many, too varied, and too consistent to ignore. Ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, rituals, voices, and screams, layer upon layer of the unexplained, all bound to the same 200 square miles of land. Is it cursed ground, poisoned by centuries of violence? A window into another world where the rules of reality thin and bend? Or is it something else entirely, something we have no name for? No one knows for sure, but ask the locals. Ask the hunters who fled the swamp, the drivers who gave rides to passengers who vanished, the families who refused to live near the forest. They'll all tell you the same thing. The stories aren't just legends. Something is out there, and sometimes it follows you home. The Bridgewater Triangle reminds us that sometimes the land itself can hold darkness, forests, swamps, and roads where shadows linger and whisper. But sometimes it isn't the land, it's the walls around you. Places built to shelter us can become prisons for grief, cruelty, and something far worse than we can see. Thousands of miles away, atop a hill in New South Wales, Australia, stands a house with a reputation nearly as terrifying as the triangle itself. Monte Cristo Homestead, a place where the past refuses to stay buried and the living are never truly alone. Feeling the chills? Yet hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chilling story. They say the house doesn't just hold memories, it holds grudges, and at Monte Cristo, those grudges never die. Perched on a hill above the small town of Junee, New South Wales, stands the Monte Cristo Homestead. To the casual eye, it looks like any other grand colonial manor. Red brick walls, iron-laced balconies, and sprawling grounds that hint at a time when Australia's settler families built their fortunes on ambition and land. But those who live nearby or dare to enter know something else. Monte Cristo is not just a house, it is a living repository of tragedy, cruelty, and despair. The story begins in the late 1880s, when Christopher Crawley, a wealthy landowner, built the homestead. Christopher was a man of means, his fortune grown from farming and shrewd business dealings. To outsiders, he provided his family with comfort, luxury, and security. But inside Monte Cristo, a darker reality took root. From the beginning, the house seemed to attract misfortune. Servants died in accidents. One stable boy was burned alive when a straw bed caught fire under mysterious circumstances. A maid fell from the balcony under conditions many whispered were suspicious. Even small injuries became serious, and a sense of unease lingered in the air, unnoticed by outsiders but deeply felt by those who worked and lived there. It was as if the house itself was alive, observing every action and passing judgment. When Christopher died, his wife, Elizabeth Crawley, assumed control of Monte Cristo. Elizabeth was a devout Catholic, strict and unforgiving, ruling her home with an iron hand. Servants remembered her walking the halls late at night with a lamp, eyes scanning the rooms, ensuring no one strayed from her rigid order. Those who disobeyed or even whispered described punishments that were cruel and unyielding. Her presence was suffocating, her gaze an invisible whip. Even in death, she was said to have carried this same force, unwilling to release her dominion over the homestead. And the stories of her spirit began almost immediately. Visitors and owners alike reported strange lights flickering in rooms that had no lamps on. Heavy footsteps echoed along the hallways, stopping suddenly when approached. Children's laughter or crying was heard when no children were present. Cold drafts would sweep through tightly sealed rooms, leaving an almost tangible chill that crept up the spine. Apparitions appeared frequently. Guests told of a woman in black Elizabeth Crawley gliding down staircases, her pale, stern face fixed on anyone daring to linger. Others claimed to see a figure near the stables, standing silently before vanishing into thin air, the ghost of the stable boy, trapped forever in the place where he suffered and died. Even skeptics admitted they felt something oppressive in the air, an invisible presence that made them uneasy long after leaving. By the 1960s, the homestead had fallen into disrepair, abandoned and left to the passage of time. It was then that the Ryan family purchased it, hoping to restore its grandeur and perhaps turn its dark history into a curiosity. But from the moment they moved in, it became clear they were not alone. Footsteps echoed on balconies where no one stood. Doors slammed shut in locked rooms. Shadows moved across walls in ways that defied explanation. The Ryans' own dogs refused to enter certain rooms, growling at corners that appeared empty. Mrs. Ryan herself experienced a moment that would haunt her forever. Alone in a room, she felt an icy grip wrap around her shoulders, an invisible hand tightening as a low, commanding whisper cut through the air. "Get out." She fled the room, shaken to her core, knowing instinctively she had not imagined it. The presence of Elizabeth Crawley remained central to the haunting. Visitors who spent the night reported waking in the small hours to see her standing at the foot of their beds, hands clasped, staring. Sometimes she would hover by the door, her expressions stern and unyielding, blocking any escape. Even those convinced of rational explanations found themselves unable to dismiss the intensity of her presence. Paranormal investigators confirmed what many had suspected. Sudden temperature drops, captured EVPs, and shadows darting across rooms left professionals uneasy. One recording even picked up a faint voice reciting Latin prayers despite no one in the house speaking the language. Locals also spoke in hushed tones of tragedies beyond Elizabeth herself. A caretaker shot dead on the property. A mentally ill man chained in the outhouse for decades. His agonized cries echoing into the night. They say his spirit still lingers near the back of the property, moaning in pain, unseen but always heard. Monte Cristo's reputation grew not just because of the number of spirits said to reside there, but because of their intensity. This was not a house of faint knocks or fleeting shadows. These were full-bodied apparitions, voices so clear they could be mistaken for a living person, and encounters so physical that people left trembling and unsettled. Visitors often describe a crushing heaviness the moment they step through the front door, as if the air itself carries the weight of more than a century of suffering. Some cannot last more than an hour inside before leaving in tears. Others swear they were watched constantly, their every movement observed by forces invisible but intensely aware. Even skeptics leave changed, unsettled in ways they cannot fully explain. Despite the overwhelming presence of the paranormal, the Ryans chose to stay, turning Monte Cristo into both a museum and a destination for those daring or foolish enough to spend the night. They admit the house has a will of its own. Mrs. Ryan once confessed, "We live with them now. We just hope they let us stay." The homestead continues to loom over Juni, a permanent fixture in both the landscape and the imagination. Visitors come seeking proof of the paranormal, thrill-seekers chasing adrenaline, skeptics testing their theories, but almost all leave with the same haunted look in their eyes, claiming they felt something brush against them, heard a name called in the dark, or saw a figure standing just beyond the edge of their vision. Monte Cristo is more than a house. It is a monument to cruelty, tragedy, and unrelenting presence. Perhaps it is Elizabeth Crawley, still patrolling her halls with the same iron will she had in life, unwilling to release her grip. Perhaps it is the countless servants and residents whose lives ended in pain, bound forever to the place of their suffering. Or perhaps it is something deeper, something born from the very darkness of human cruelty, embedded into the land, a scar that refuses to heal. If you ever find yourself in Juni, you may be tempted to step inside. Many do. But remember this, the house does not forget, and it does not forgive. And when the lights flicker in an empty room, when cold drafts brush your skin, or when the shadows seem just a little too alive, remember that Monte Cristo is watching. The walls have memories, and those memories are waiting for you. Would you dare spend a night at Monte Cristo, knowing what waits in the dark? If you think that's terrifying, wait until you see what centuries of darkness have buried in Europe. Far across the world, in the dense forests of the Czech Republic, sits Houska Castle. Unlike Monte Cristo, this fortress was never meant to protect people from enemies. It was built to keep something far older, far darker, trapped inside. And tonight, its secrets will finally be revealed. Before we enter the shadows of our final location, take a moment to comment below which of these places scares you the most. Share this video with someone brave enough to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe now for more terrifying real-life encounters. The stones of Houska Castle were never meant to protect men from enemies outside. They were built to keep something trapped within. Deep in the dense forests of the Czech Republic, far from roads or villages, stands a fortress that makes no sense. Its walls rise high, its windows overlook nothing but stone and trees, and its gates open to sheer cliffs with no path beyond. Historians trace the castle's construction to the 13th century, but no records explain why it was built or why in such a remote, uninhabited place. Locals have their answer. Houska Castle was built directly over a pit said to have no bottom, a hole in the earth so deep that it was believed to lead straight into hell. Stories say winged creatures once clawed their way out of it, half human, half beast, faces twisted in agony. Shadows circled the pit at night, and villagers whispered of people dragged screaming into the darkness. The land itself seemed to reject life. Birds avoided it, and even wolves steered clear. The castle was not built to protect men. It was built to contain something unimaginable. For centuries, Houska Castle stood abandoned, but silence never means safety. I first heard of it in an old soldier's journal, locked away in my grandfather's trunk. His handwriting was shaky, but the words were chilling. We heard the screams from below. They came at night, through the cracks in the stone. Not the screams of men, but something worse. That line never left me. Years later, while visiting Prague for work, I couldn't resist the pull. I hired a local guide, but when I mentioned Houska, he shook his head. "No one goes there," he said firmly. I went alone. The road ended miles from the castle, leaving me to trudge through a forest so thick the trees swallowed all light. With every step, the woods grew colder, quieter. No birdsong, no rustling animals, only the wind threading through bare branches. Hours later, the forest opened, revealing the castle, grey and lifeless, like a tomb risen from the earth. Even in daylight, something felt wrong. The walls were tall, smooth, unbroken by battle or weather. The windows were narrow, high above the ground, looking out onto nothing but sheer drops and tangled woods. The main gate, once a drawbridge, hung over empty air. Whoever built this fortress had no intention of defending the land. They were containing something inside. Inside, the air was heavy and stale, thick with the dust of centuries. My flashlight caught faded frescoes on the chapel walls. Angels with broken wings, faces twisted into grotesque expressions. Some swore these paintings predated the castle itself, made by trembling hands to ward off evil. Deeper into the halls, the cold became unnatural. My breath fogged before me, though no fires had burned for decades. It felt as if the stone itself exhaled an icy warning, seeping into my skin and bone. At the center of the chapel, I found it, a massive stone slab, cracked with age, covering the pit, the gateway to the abyss. I knelt, pressing a hand to its surface. Cold radiated up my arm, sharp and biting. Beneath my skin, I felt something stir, a vibration from far below, slow, deliberate, alive. Then the sound began. At first a faint moan, almost drowned by my racing heartbeat, but it grew, layering into screams that were not human. High-pitched wails merged with guttural growls, twisting into a chorus of torment that made my stomach lurch. My flashlight flickered as the cold pressed closer, heavier, and then the scratching, slow, deliberate, claws dragging against the underside of the slab. I scrambled backward, heart hammering. I turned to flee, and the castle shifted. Corridors that had been open-ended in walls. Doorways led to empty rooms. Whispers chased me, echoing, overlapping, forming syllables I couldn't quite catch until one phrase rang clear. Open it. I swung my flashlight over the frescoes again. The angels on the walls had changed. Their eyes, once painted dull, now glimmered, wide with terror, staring at me. One figure, wings torn and tattered, now pointed down, directly at the slab, the pit. I ran. The corridors twisted unnaturally, each turn bringing another dead end. Shadows moved at the edge of my vision, just beyond the flashlight's reach. Something shuffled behind me, claws scraping the stone. I didn't look back, not once. Finally, I burst into the forest, lungs burning, legs trembling. The castle loomed behind me, silent now, but the feeling of eyes on me did not vanish. That night, in a hotel miles away, I dreamt of the slab cracking open, winged figures clawing through, faces twisted in agony, shadows spilling into the forest. I woke to find my window open. On the sill lay a single grey feather, damp and smeared with what looked like blood. Even now, the screams haunt me, faint and distant in the quiet moments. I can feel it beneath the skin of the world, in the deep, dark places where no sunlight reaches. Historians are baffled by Houska. Records suggest it was a normal castle, but no siege ever reached it, no armies defended it. Archaeologists have confirmed the pit is real, but it is unnaturally deep, impossibly narrow, and empty except for rock. Even instruments cannot measure the bottom. Local folklore insists that it is a gateway, and that stone by stone, the builders sealed hell itself inside. Over the centuries, countless stories have emerged. Guards who swore they heard whispers from the pit. Villagers reporting winged creatures emerging only to retreat in terror. Even modern visitors have reported shadows flitting across walls, lights that dance without source, and a sense of being watched always from below. Some claim the castle is alive, that it breathes, shifts, and tests those who enter. They say it punishes curiosity. Those who linger too long hear voices, whispering their deepest fears, feel invisible hands brushing their skin, see figures that defy logic. One tour guide admitted that even during daylight, the castle's influence was palpable. Birds avoided its walls. Dogs refused to enter the forest path leading to it. Children cried when brought too close, their small voices trembling with fear they could not explain. Houska Castle has stood for over 7 centuries. Its stones are meant not to keep people out, but to hold something in. And yet, with every passing year, the stories suggest the barrier weakens. The pit whispers, shadows move, feathers appear in impossible places. The air grows heavy when you enter the courtyard, as though pressing down with the weight of things unseen. I have never returned, and I never will. But even now, when the wind is still, I hear the faintest echo in my mind. The pit moaning, the whispers urging, the distant scrape of claws on stone. Houska Castle was never a fortress for men. It was a prison for something far older, far darker. And it is still waiting. If you ever find yourself in the Czech forests and stumble across the castle, remember this: do not step inside, do not touch the stones, do not look down, because the pit is awake, and it remembers. The Bridgewater Triangle, Monte Cristo Homestead, Houska Castle, 3 places, centuries and continents apart, but one thing binds them together: the stories refuse to die. The land remembers, the walls remember, and some things never rest. If tonight's tales left you looking over your shoulder, remember, horror isn't just in stories. Sometimes it waits in the places you thought were safe. Remember, some doors are meant to stay closed, and some places never forgive. For more real-life horror, unsolved mysteries, and encounters with the unexplained, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with anyone who dares. Until next time, stay aware, stay cautious, and remember, some doors are meant to stay closed.